The term urban local government in India refers to the way cities and towns are governed by local authorities elected by the people living in those areas. This kind of governance allows residents to have their voices heard and participate in the decision-making process that affects their urban environment. Each urban local government has its power and responsibilities, but they only cover a designated area defined by the state government, meaning their authority is not spread beyond those borders. In India, there are 8 different types of urban local governments. These are municipal corporations, municipalities, notified area committees, town area committees, cantonment boards, townships, port trusts, and special purpose agencies. Each type serves a specific need based on the size and requirements of the urban area it governs. For example, a municipal corporation often governs larger cities, while municipalities may be responsible for smaller towns. The framework for urban local governance in India was established by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992. This important amendment added a new section to the Indian Constitution, specifically Articles 243p to 243zg, which set rules for how urban local bodies should be structured, how elections should be conducted, and the powers and responsibilities of these bodies. This amendment aimed to enhance democratic participation at the local level and empower urban local bodies to manage urban development and affairs more effectively. At the central government level, several ministries are responsible for overseeing the functioning of urban local governments. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs plays a key role, focusing on urban planning, infrastructure development, and housing issues. The Ministry of Defence oversees the governance of cantonment boards, which are specific areas established for military personnel and their families. Furthermore, the Ministry of Home Affairs is responsible for urban local governance in union territories, ensuring that these areas have the necessary local governance structures in place. Overall, urban local governments are vital for managing the growing challenges of urbanization in India, including housing, transport, waste management, and the delivery of essential services. Through these local bodies, citizens can engage directly with their government, leading to better representation and more effective solutions to urban issues. Evolution of urban bodies in India, a historical overview. Urban local governments in India began to take shape during the time of British rule. This development was crucial in establishing a framework for managing cities and towns. Here's a simple explanation of how these institutions evolved. The first significant step towards urban local governance happened in 1688 when the Madras Municipal Corporation was established. This corporation was formed after a charter was issued on 30th December 1687. But it officially became operational on 29 September 1688. Following Madras, 2 other major cities, Bombay, now Mumbai, and Calcutta, now Kolkata, received their municipal corporations in 1726. A landmark moment in the evolution of local self-governance came in 1870 with Lord Mayo's resolution on financial decentralization. This resolution aimed to promote the development of local governing bodies that could manage their finances and operations independently. Following this, in 1882, Lord Ripon, who is often referred to as the father of local self-government in India, introduced a resolution that laid down principles for local governance. His contributions have been celebrated as pivotal, even earning the title Magna Carta of local self-governance. In 1907, the Royal Commission on Decentralization was established, which aimed to review and recommend improvements in local governance. This commission, chaired by C.E.H. Hobhouse, submitted its report in 1909, focusing on the need for more effective local administration. The Government of India Act of 1919 introduced a significant change with its diarchial scheme in provinces, making local self-government a matter of transferred responsibility under the leadership of an Indian minister. This marked a notable shift toward greater Indian participation in governance. In 1924, the Cantonments Act was passed by the Central Legislature, further solidifying the framework for urban governance in military areas. The Government of India Act of 1935 took this realignment further by designating local self-governance as part of provincial subjects, allowing provinces to have more control over their local administrative affairs. Numerous committees and commissions have been established throughout this period by the central government to enhance urban governance. Each of these bodies aimed to address various issues related to local governance, infrastructure, and civic engagement. They played a critical role in shaping the current structure of urban local bodies implemented under the Indian Constitution. In terms of constitutional provisions, urban local governance is governed primarily by Article 243 of the Indian Constitution, which mandates the establishment of Panchayati Raj institutions for rural areas, and similar articles in the Durham system that formulate urban local bodies. Additionally, the 73rd and 74th Amendments to the Constitution were significant in reinforcing the structure and functioning of local self-governments in both rural and urban settings, aiming to bring more democracy and accountability. In conclusion, the evolution of urban bodies in India reflects a gradual yet significant journey from British colonial rule to contemporary governance, with many reforms aimed at promoting local self-governance and increasing public participation in the management of urban areas. These developments laid the foundation for the modern urban governance framework we see today in India. In August 1989, the government led by Rajiv Gandhi took steps to enhance local governance in India by proposing the 65th Constitutional Amendment Bill, commonly known as the Nagarpalika Bill. The primary aim of this bill was to give municipal bodies, which are local government units for towns and cities, a constitutional standing. This was significant because it would help to strengthen the administrative powers and functions of these bodies, making them more effective in serving the needs of the community. Even though the bill was successfully passed in the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house of parliament, it faced a setback in the Rajya Sabha, the upper house. In October 1989, the Rajya Sabha rejected the bill, causing it to lapse. This situation highlighted some of the challenges in Indian legislative processes, where differing opinions in the two houses can affect the passage of important reforms. Following this, the National Front government under VP Singh took another shot at reforming local governance. In September 1990, they reintroduced the Nagarpalika Bill in the Lok Sabha. Unfortunately, this attempt also did not succeed, and the bill lapsed after the Lok Sabha was dissolved. This recurring theme of proposed reforms failing to pass demonstrates the complexities of legislative action in India and the need for political consensus. The big breakthrough came with the government of P.V. Narasimha Rao. In September 1991, the Rao government proposed a modified version of the Municipalities Bill. This was a crucial step in finally achieving constitutional recognition for municipal bodies. The bill ultimately led to the enactment of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1992. This act came into effect on 1 June 1993 and marked a significant milestone in Indian governance. The 74th Amendment added Part 9A to the Indian Constitution, which specifically deals with the governance of municipalities. It laid down a framework for the structure, composition, and powers of urban local bodies to ensure democratic decentralization. Key provisions include the formation of 3 types of urban local bodies: municipal corporations for larger cities, municipal councils for smaller urban areas, and Nagar Panchayats for transitional areas. Additionally, the amendment mandates regular elections for these local bodies and gives them a range of powers, responsibilities, and authority, as defined in Article 243p to Article 243zg of the Constitution. This framework was designed to empower citizens at the local level and ensure that local self-governments function effectively to meet the administrative and developmental needs of their areas. Through these changes, the constitutional status given to urban local bodies has been vital in enhancing grassroots democracy, making local governments more accountable, and improving public service delivery in urban areas across India. The 74th Amendment Act of 1992 is an important change to the Constitution of India. It specifically introduced a new section called Part 9A, which is focused on municipalities. This part includes Articles 243p to 243zg. Along with this new section, the amendment also created a 12th schedule, which lists 18 key areas where municipalities have specific responsibilities and functions. This section is particularly connected to Article 243 watts. One of the significant impacts of the 74th Amendment is that it gave municipalities a constitutional status. This means that state governments are required by the Constitution to establish and maintain municipalities according to the guidelines laid out in the amendment. This requirement creates a legal obligation for states to implement local self-governance in urban areas, which had not been constitutional before this act. The purpose of this amendment is to empower urban local bodies so they can work more effectively as local government units. By doing so, the government aims to improve governance at the local level, ensuring that cities and towns can manage their own affairs better and cater to the needs of their residents. The constitutional articles included in this amendment, specifically Articles 243p to 243zg, outline various aspects of municipal governance. For instance, Article 243p defines what a municipality is and establishes different types of municipalities, such as urban and rural types. Article 243-Q explains the composition of municipalities, details the ways in which the municipal government should be structured, and specifies how elections will be conducted for various positions within the municipalities. Additionally, Article 243-X emphasizes the importance of a state election commission, which is responsible for overseeing elections to the municipalities to ensure they are fair and free from manipulation. This reinforces the idea that local governance is not just a theoretical concept but an effective part of the democratic process in India. By providing these articles with legal backing and outlining the structure and responsibilities of municipalities, the 74th Amendment Act helps ensure that urban local governance is strengthened and operates smoothly. This is crucial for managing the growing urbanization in India and addressing the unique challenges that cities and towns face. Overall, the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 plays a vital role in enhancing the framework of local self-governance in urban areas while holding state governments accountable for implementing these necessary changes. Overview of municipalities in India. The laws governing municipalities in India are designed to establish local self-government in urban areas. This framework ensures that residents have a say in local governance, which is crucial for effective administration and service delivery. The key features of these laws, largely derived from the 73rd and 74th Amendments of the Indian Constitution, detail how municipalities are structured and operated. Types of municipalities. The Municipal Act outlines three main types of municipalities that are to be set up in every state based on the size and complexity of urban areas. Nagar Panchayat. This is for transitional areas, which are places undergoing the process of urbanization and development. Municipal Council. This is meant for smaller urban areas that are more developed than rural regions but do not warrant a municipal corporation. Municipal Corporation. This is formed for larger urban areas with a significant population and infrastructure needs. Additionally, the Act allows for certain areas, particularly industrial zones where municipal services are provided by industries themselves, to be designated as industrial townships. In such cases, a formal municipality may not be needed. The state governor plays a crucial role in categorizing areas into these types based on various factors, including population, the number of people living in the area. The number of people living in the area. Population density, how closely packed the population is. How closely packed the population is. Revenue generation, the financial activities and gains for the local administration. The financial activities and gains for the local administration. Employment in non-agricultural sectors, the level of job opportunities outside agriculture. The level of job opportunities outside agriculture. Economic importance, the area's significance in the broader economic context. Composition of municipalities. Members of a municipality are to be elected directly by the local population. Each municipality is divided into wards, which are constituencies for this purpose. The Act allows state legislatures to dictate how chairpersons are elected and who may hold special advisory positions in these municipalities. These can include individuals possessing knowledge of municipal administration without voting rights. Members of the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies whose constituencies include parts of the municipality. Individuals from the Rajya Sabha and state legislative councils registered within the municipality. Chairpersons of various committees. In bigger municipalities, with a population over 3 lakh, ward committees are established to represent a group of wards, further facilitating local governance. Reservation of seats. To ensure representation, the Act mandates that seats be reserved for scheduled castes, SCs, and scheduled tribes, STs, proportionate to their population in the municipality. It also mandates that at least 1/3 of all seats are reserved for women. Additionally, states can reserve seats for backward classes, and these reservations are valid until 2030, as specified in Article 334 of the Constitution. Duration and powers of municipalities. Municipal bodies have a term of 5 years from their first meeting but can be dissolved before this period. If dissolved, new elections must be held within 6 months, unless less than 6 months remain in the original term. They are also required to be given a chance to defend themselves before being dissolved. The State Election Commission supervises the electoral process in municipalities, ensuring free and fair elections. Financial powers. The state legislature has the authority to empower municipalities to raise funds through various means. Levying taxes, duties, and fees. Receiving grants from the state government. Managing funds allocated for municipal activities. Municipalities must maintain proper financial accounts, and the Finance Commission reviews their economic health every 5 years, offering recommendations to improve their financial status. Planning committees. The Act establishes district planning committees in each state to consolidate development plans from both the panchayats, rural local bodies, and municipalities. Similarly, metropolitan planning committees are established in cities for coherent urban planning. These committees ensure integrated development and resource management between urban and rural sectors, aligning with national and state objectives. Legal framework and continuity. Existing state laws regarding municipalities remained effective for a year following the commencement of this Act, 1 June 1993, allowing states time to adapt to the new structure. Limitations and exemptions. The Act does not apply to scheduled areas and tribal regions, ensuring these areas can maintain some autonomy in local governance. The central authorities can, however, extend provisions to these areas if needed. Conclusion. The Act that outlines the framework for municipalities in India aims at fostering local self-governance and ensuring citizens are involved in the decision-making processes that affect their daily lives. Through structured representation, reserved seats for underrepresented groups, and assigned financial powers, municipalities have the potential to address local issues more effectively, leading to improved quality of life for urban residents. Understanding this framework is crucial for anyone looking to grasp the intricacies of local governance in India, especially the provisions detailed under Articles 243p to 243zg of the Constitution, which lay down the legal basis for municipal bodies and their functioning. Types of urban governments in India. In India, urban areas are managed by different types of local organizations known as urban local bodies. These bodies are responsible for the administration, development, and maintenance of cities and towns. The Indian government recognizes several types of urban local bodies, each serving a specific purpose and operating under various laws and constitutional provisions. Below are the 8 main types of urban local bodies in India. 1. Municipal corporation. Municipal corporations are the largest urban local bodies in India. They govern big cities and handle a wide range of services such as water supply, waste management, and roads. Municipal corporations operate under the provisions of the Indian Constitution, Article 243p to Article 243zg, and the relevant state laws. They consist of elected representatives known as corporators who help create and execute policies for the city's development. 2. Municipality. Municipalities are smaller than municipal corporations and usually manage towns and smaller cities. They also oversee public services like sanitation, housing, and transportation. The governance structure of municipalities, including the election of representatives, is also based on Article 243p and is guided by state legislation. 3. Notified Area Committee. Notified area committees are created for areas that are developing but do not yet qualify to be full municipalities. They serve as a transitional body, helping manage urban needs without a full municipal structure. The specific law governing notified area committees may vary by state. 4. Town Area Committee. Town area committees govern smaller areas that require basic urban management services. These committees are formed under specific state laws, providing a platform for local governance in areas that do not require a full municipal body. 5. Cantonment Board. Cantonment boards manage areas designated for military use. They are established under the Cantonments Act, 2006 and operate independently from other urban local bodies. Their responsibilities include the provision of civic amenities in areas where military establishments are located. 6. Township. Townships can be formed by private developers or governmental agencies as planned urban environments that provide housing and amenities. These developments often come under the jurisdiction of various laws, which govern their operation, ensuring that essential services are available to residents. 7. Port Trust. Port trusts are established to manage the ports and their surrounding areas. They provide services related to shipping and transport. The governance of port trusts in India is governed under the Major Port Trusts Act, 1963, which outlines their responsibilities and powers. 8. Special Purpose Agency. Special purpose agencies are organized for specific functions, such as urban planning, transport management, or development of specific infrastructure projects. Their setup and functions are articulated through guidelines or acts as needed for various urban initiatives. In summary, urban local bodies in India play a vital role in managing the needs of urban populations through distinct layers of governance. Each type of body is guided by constitutional provisions and state laws that define its functions and scope. Understanding these types allows citizens to engage more effectively in local governance and civic matters. Municipal corporations in India. Municipal corporations are local government bodies that manage and administer large cities in India, such as Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. These organizations are essential for local governance and provide various services to the urban population. Municipal corporations are established through laws made by state legislatures for the states and by the Parliament of India for union territories. Depending on the state, there can be a common law for all municipal corporations or individual laws for each corporation. The structure of a municipal corporation consists of three main authorities: the council, the standing committees, and the municipal commissioner. The council is the main governing body of the municipal corporation. It is tasked with discussing and making decisions on various municipal issues. Members of the council, known as councillors, are directly elected by the residents of the city. Alongside these elected members, there may also be a few nominated members who are selected for their expertise in municipal matters. The composition of the council, including the reservation of seats for scheduled castes, SC, scheduled tribes, Cent, and women, is outlined in the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was enacted in 1992 to enhance local self-governance in urban areas. The council is led by a mayor, who acts as the ceremonial head of the corporation. The mayor is typically elected for a one-year term, although this term can be renewed. While the role of the mayor is important, it is largely symbolic. They mostly preside over meetings but do not have significant executive powers. Assisting the mayor is a deputy mayor, who steps in when the mayor is unavailable. To manage the extensive responsibilities of the council effectively, various standing committees are formed. These committees break down the work into specific areas such as public works, education, health services, taxation, and finance. Each committee is responsible for making decisions within its domain, streamlining the functioning of the municipal corporation. At the executive level, the municipal commissioner is crucial for implementing the decisions made by both the council and its standing committees. The municipal commissioner is appointed by the state government and is often a member of the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, reflecting the importance of this role in managing municipal affairs efficiently. Overall, municipal corporations play a vital role in urban governance in India, facilitating necessary services and infrastructure for city dwellers. The structure and operations of these corporations are governed by various articles in the Constitution of India, primarily highlighted in the 74th Constitutional Amendment, which aims to promote local self-governance and empower urban local bodies to serve their communities effectively. Municipalities in India. Municipalities are local governing bodies set up to manage the affairs of towns and smaller cities in India. They play a vital role in ensuring that urban areas are well organized and effectively managed. Like municipal corporations, which serve larger cities, municipalities are established by the state laws or acts passed by the Parliament for union territories. These local bodies can have different names depending on the region, such as municipal councils, municipal committees, municipal boards, borough municipalities, or city municipalities. In a municipality, there are three main authorities responsible for its functioning: the council, the standing committees, and the chief executive officer, CEO. The council serves as both the deliberative, discussion-based, and legislative, lawmaking part of the municipality. It is made up of councillors who are elected directly by the people living in the municipality. The council is led by a president or chairman, who is supported by a vice president or vice chairman. This president plays an important role in local governance, unlike the mayor of a municipal corporation, and is considered the central figure in the municipality's administration. The president not only leads the council meetings but also possesses executive powers to make decisions on various local matters. This means they have a significant say in the policies and operations of the municipality, ensuring that the elected members' discussions translate into actions that benefit the community. To help with specific tasks, municipalities also form standing committees. These committees are focused on various essential areas such as public works, taxation, health, and finances. By dividing responsibilities among these committees, the municipality can operate more smoothly and efficiently, addressing urgent issues in a timely manner. The Chief Executive Officer, also known as the Chief Municipal Officer, is another key figure within the municipality. This person is responsible for the day-to-day administration and management of the municipality's operations. The CEO is appointed by the state government, ensuring that the municipality runs effectively and that all administrative duties are carried out as required. In India, the framework for municipalities is provided under Article 243p to 243zg of the Constitution. These articles are part of the 73rd Amendment, which emphasizes the importance of local self-governance for effective democracy at all levels of government. The Constitution mandates states to establish municipalities in urban areas and to empower these bodies with the necessary authority to facilitate local governance. This also includes setting up the guidelines for the election of councillors and the formation of different authorities within the municipality. Overall, municipalities are crucial for managing urban governance and delivering essential services efficiently. They contribute to the development and well-being of smaller cities and towns, enhancing the quality of life for residents. Notified Area Committee. A notified area committee is a special type of administrative body set up by the government for certain types of towns in India. This committee usually comes into play in two situations: first, for towns that are rapidly developing due to industrial growth, and second, for towns that haven't yet met all the requirements to be officially recognized as municipalities but are still considered significant by the state government. The main reason it is called a notified area committee is that it is established through a formal notification in the Government Gazette. This means that the government officially announces the creation of this committee in a public document that is published. Even though the committee operates under the rules of the State Municipal Act, only those sections of the Act that are specifically mentioned in the Gazette notification apply to it. This gives it a unique status as it has certain powers outlined in other laws as well. The functions and powers of a notified area committee are quite similar to those of a municipality. It can perform various administrative tasks like managing local infrastructure, sanitation, and other community services. However, one key difference is that a notified area committee is not elected by the local residents. Instead, all its members, including the chairperson, are appointed by the state government. Because of this, it is considered a nominated body rather than an elected or statutory one. In terms of the legal framework, the establishment of a notified area committee can be related to Article 243Q of the Indian Constitution, which provides for the establishment of municipalities. This article, along with others in the 73rd Amendment, aims to decentralize power and promote local self-governance. While notified area committees may not fall directly within the usual definitions of municipalities, they still play an important role in managing urban areas that are in transition. Overall, a notified area committee is a temporary administrative solution designed to help manage towns that are on the verge of development but do not yet qualify as full municipalities. Its nomination structure allows for quick governance decisions, which can be crucial in rapidly changing environments, such as those found in industrializing towns. A Town Area Committee, TAC, is an administrative body set up to manage the governance of small towns in India. It operates as a semi-municipal authority, meaning it has some, but not all, of the powers of a full municipal corporation. The main purpose of a town area committee is to take care of basic civic functions that make a town livable. These responsibilities typically include maintaining drainage systems, managing road infrastructure, providing street lighting, and overseeing cleanliness and waste management, often referred to as conservancy. The establishment of a town area committee is done through a specific act passed by the state legislature. This act outlines how the committee is formed, what functions it is responsible for, and various other administrative matters. Each state in India may have its own laws and regulations that govern the operation of town area committees, so their structure and powers can vary from one state to another. The composition of a town area committee can be set up in different ways. It may consist entirely of members that are elected by the residents of the town. Alternatively, it can be made up entirely of members appointed, nominated, by the state government. In some cases, the committee may be a mix of both elected and nominated members. This flexibility allows for different governance approaches based on local needs and state policies. In terms of constitutional backing, the 73rd Amendment to the Indian Constitution in 1992 aims to enhance local self-government through the establishment of Panchayati Raj institutions, which includes municipalities. However, town area committees are not directly mentioned in the Constitution. Instead, they fall under the jurisdiction of state laws, which are consistent with the principles of local governance articulated in the Constitution, particularly Articles 243p to 243zg, which deal with the framework for the formation of panchayats and municipalities. Understanding town area committees is essential for grasping how local governance operates in India, especially in smaller towns where administrative needs may differ from larger metropolitan areas. They play a crucial role in ensuring that local civic functions are efficiently managed, contributing to the overall development and quality of life in these communities. Cantonment boards in India. A cantonment board is an organization set up to manage local government affairs in areas where the military is present, specifically where civilians live alongside military personnel. The establishment of these boards is governed by the Cantonments Act of 2006, which was created by the central government of India. Unlike other local governance bodies, which are set up and managed by state governments, cantonment boards operate directly under the control of the Ministry of Defence at the central level. The Cantonments Act of 2006 was introduced to update and combine previous laws relating to the administration of cantonments. The new law aimed to make the governance of these areas more democratic. It also focused on improving financial resources in cantonments to support local development projects and related activities. This act replaced the earlier Cantonments Act of 1924, reflecting the need for modernization and better management of these unique urban spaces. Currently, there are 62 cantonment boards across India, each categorized based on the size of their civilian population. These boards are divided into 4 categories based on the civilian population. Category I, the population is above 50,000. Category 2, the population ranges from 10,000 to 50,000. Category 3, the population is from 2,500 to 10,000. Category 4, the population is below 2,500. The structure of a cantonment board is a mix of elected and nominated members. Elected members serve a term of 5 years, while nominated members, often called ex officio members, stay in their roles as long as they hold their other official position in that cantonment area. The overall head of a cantonment board is typically the military officer commanding the station, who acts as the ex officio president and leads board meetings. A vice president is chosen from among the elected members for a 5-year term as well. In Category I cantonment boards, the composition includes a military officer commanding the station, an executive engineer from the cantonment, a health officer for the cantonment area, a first-class magistrate appointed by the district magistrate, 3 military officers selected by the commanding officer, 8 members elected by the residents of the cantonment area, The Chief Executive Officer of the Cantonment Board. The duties of the Cantonment Board resemble those of regular municipal bodies and are divided into obligatory and discretionary functions. Obligatory functions are mandatory services that the board must provide, like sanitation and public health, while discretionary functions are optional services that improve the quality of life but are not required. Cantonment boards generate income from taxes and non-tax revenues. The executive officer of the board, appointed by the President of India, is responsible for executing the board's decisions and running its various committees. This officer is typically part of the central cadre set up specifically for managing these roles. In summary, cantonment boards play a significant role in the governance of areas where civilians live alongside military personnel. They provide essential services and are structured to ensure that both the civilian and military perspectives are represented in local governance, adhering to the guidelines established by the Cantonments Act of 2006. Township urban government in India. In India, townships are a specific kind of urban government set up by large public enterprises, such as big factories or mining companies. These enterprises create townships to provide essential services and living spaces for their employees and workers. Most of these workers live in residential areas, often called housing colonies, close to their workplace. The primary goal of a township is to ensure that the staff and their families have access to various civic amenities, such as clean water, proper sanitation, health care services, roads, and recreational facilities. This focus on providing a quality living environment is necessary to maintain worker satisfaction and productivity. In this system, the enterprise appoints a town administrator who is responsible for overseeing the administration of the township. This administrator supervises the functioning of various services and infrastructure in the township. To assist the administrator, there are engineers and other technical staff, along with non-technical personnel. One important thing to note about townships is that they do not have elected representatives, which differentiates them from other forms of urban governance like municipal corporations or councils. Instead of being a democratic entity where local residents elect their leaders, townships operate more like an extension of the enterprise's bureaucratic structure. Decisions are made by appointed officials rather than elected ones. In terms of regulation, the governance of these townships on a legal level is often tied to the Companies Act, 2013, and other laws that govern public enterprises in India. The Constitution of India, while not providing specific articles concerning townships, lays down principles of governance, democracy, and social justice, which indirectly influence how townships function within larger urban planning frameworks. Furthermore, larger urban planning laws and regulations, such as the Urban Development Acts of various states, may also apply to townships, particularly as they incorporate facilities and infrastructure that impact the urban environment at large. For example, aspects like land use, zoning, and environmental regulations play a significant role in how townships are developed and administered. In conclusion, townships serve as a unique urban governance model designed specifically for large public enterprises. While they aim to improve living conditions for workers, their lack of elected representation points to a more controlled environment, often reflecting the enterprise's administrative structure rather than a participatory democratic system. Understanding the legal framework and policies that govern these townships is essential for grasping their role within the broader context of Indian urban development. Port trusts in India. Port trusts in India are important organizations set up to manage and operate ports in various cities like Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, and others. These trusts serve two main purposes. Firstly, they are responsible for the management and protection of the ports, ensuring that cargo and passengers can move safely and efficiently. Secondly, they provide various civic amenities to support the communities around the ports. The establishment of a port trust is done through an act of parliament, which means that it is created by national legislation. This legal framework ensures that they can operate with the authority needed to carry out their functions effectively. Port trusts are made up of a mix of elected and nominated members. The elected members usually represent the interests of the stakeholders involved in port activities, while nominated members may include people with expertise or experience relevant to port management. At the head of each port trust is a chairman, who is usually an official appointed to ensure that the organization runs smoothly. This role is crucial, as the chairman helps coordinate between the different members and manages the day-to-day operations of the port. One key aspect of the port trusts is that their civic functions are quite similar to those of municipal bodies. This means they are involved in providing local services like water supply, waste management, health, and sanitation, making them central to the community around the ports. Their work helps improve the living conditions of the people in port regions. In terms of legal backing, port trusts in India are governed primarily under the Major Port Trusts Act of 1963. This act outlines the powers, responsibilities, and governance structure of port trusts. Additionally, Articles 246 and 300 of the Indian Constitution provide the framework within which states and the central government can legislate on matters related to ports, harbours, and shipping. Moreover, with India's focus on expanding its trade and improving its logistic networks, the functioning of port trusts is increasingly vital for the nation's economy. They facilitate import and export activities and play a key role in enhancing trade relations. As India aims to boost its position in global trade, the efficiency and management of port trusts will continue to be a significant factor contributing to overall economic growth. Special purpose agencies in urban management. In India, urban governance is not just managed by the usual city councils or municipal corporations. Apart from these main governing bodies, every state has also created specific agencies to handle particular tasks that are essential for the functioning of urban areas. These agencies are often called special purpose agencies. Unlike traditional urban bodies that focus on specific geographical areas, these agencies are designed around specific functions or activities. The term special purpose agencies refers to organizations that focus on one primary aim, hence they are sometimes referred to as single-purpose or unipurpose agencies. Some notable examples of these special purpose agencies include Town Improvement Trusts. These are set up to enhance the living conditions and infrastructure in towns. Urban Development Authorities. They focus on planning and developing urban areas, ensuring there is adequate housing, roads, and amenities. Water Supply and Sewerage Boards. These bodies are responsible for providing clean drinking water and managing wastewater systems in urban areas. Housing Boards. Their main goal is to promote affordable housing and provide various accommodation options to residents. Pollution Control Boards. These agencies work on preventing and controlling pollution, ensuring that urban environments remain safe and clean for residents. Electricity Supply Boards. They manage the distribution of electricity and ensure that urban areas have a steady power supply. City Transport Boards. These organizations oversee public transportation systems, ensuring they are efficient, safe, and accessible to all urban residents. These special purpose agencies are created either through specific laws passed by the state legislature or by administrative orders. Importantly, they operate as autonomous bodies, which means they have the power to make decisions independently of the main municipal corporations or other local governance bodies. This independence helps them focus on their specific operational areas without being influenced by the day-to-day political matters of local governments. In terms of legal framework in India, various constitutional provisions and state laws support the establishment and functioning of these agencies. Many of these agencies derive their authority from Article 243ZB of the Indian Constitution, which allows states to create institutions for urban planning and management. Moreover, specific acts passed by individual state legislatures provide the regulatory framework needed for their functioning. In summary, special purpose agencies play a crucial role in urban governance by targeting key urban challenges effectively. They enhance the management of vital urban services and infrastructure, leading to improved living conditions for citizens. Understanding their function and operation can help citizens better engage with urban policies and developments in their local areas. Municipal personnel in India. In India, the municipal personnel system refers to the arrangement of employees working in local urban governments. There are three main kinds of municipal personnel systems that operate in different states and local bodies across the nation. Each of these systems has its unique features regarding how personnel are appointed, managed, and whether they can be transferred to different local bodies. The first type is the separate personnel system. In this system, each municipality is responsible for hiring, organizing, and managing its staff. The employees in this setup work exclusively for their local bodies and cannot be moved to another municipality. This system is the most commonly used across India and supports the idea that local governments should have the freedom to manage their resources independently, nurturing a strong sense of loyalty from the employees to their local body. The second type is the unified personnel system. Here, the state government takes charge of appointing and managing municipal personnel. This means that a single service, applicable to all urban bodies within the state, is established. The personnel in this system can be transferred between different local bodies and roles. States like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh typically apply this system. The third type is known as the integrated personnel system. In this framework, the employees working for state departments and those working in local municipal bodies belong to the same service category. This allows for easy transfer of personnel not only between local bodies but also between different sections of the state government. In this way, the distinction between local civil service and state civil service disappears. States such as Odisha, Bihar, Karnataka, Punjab, and Haryana follow this system. To support the training and development of municipal personnel, several national institutions have been established. One of the earliest is the All India Institute of Local Self-Government in Mumbai, founded in 1927. This private organization has played a key role in training local government officials. Another significant body is the Center for Urban and Environmental Studies, located in New Delhi. It was established in 1967 based on recommendations from the Nuruddin Dhemmat Committee, which studied the training needs of municipal employees between 1963 and 1965. This committee also led to the founding of various regional centers, including those in Kolkata, Lucknow, Hyderabad, and Mumbai, to improve staff training across the country. Additionally, the National Institute of Urban Affairs was established in 1976 in New Delhi, also focusing on enhancing urban management capabilities. Following this, the Human Settlement Management Institute was established in 1985 in New Delhi to cater to urban planning and management needs. To understand these systems better, one should refer to Article 243p to Article 243ZG of the Indian Constitution, which detail the framework for the establishment of municipalities. These articles emphasize the need for local self-governance and the importance of empowering urban bodies to function effectively, thus highlighting the integral role of municipal personnel in the democratic process. Overall, the different types of municipal personnel systems in India highlight the varied approaches to managing urban governance and underscore the need for adequate training and development for effective municipal administration. Municipal revenue. Urban local bodies, which are crucial for managing cities and towns in India, earn their income from 5 main sources. Understanding these revenue sources is essential as they help in providing essential services and infrastructure for urban residents. Tax revenue is one of the primary ways these local bodies generate income. This includes several types of taxes. Property tax is the most significant among them, collected from homeowners and property owners based on the value of their properties. Other taxes include entertainment tax for various recreational activities, taxes on advertisements displayed in public places, professional tax on the earnings of professionals, and water tax for the supply of water. There are also specific levies such as a lighting tax for street lights, pilgrim tax for visitors to religious places, market tax collected from vendors, and tolls on new bridges. Moreover, municipal bodies may impose additional cesses, like library cess, education cess for funding schools, and a beggary cess aimed at addressing issues related to begging. The second source of revenue is non-tax revenue, which encompasses earnings from various fees and charges. This includes rent collected from municipal properties, fines for violations, royalty payments, and profits from services offered. User charges, which are payments for public utilities, such as water supply, sanitation services, and sewerage, form a significant part of this non-tax revenue. These charges ensure that users contribute to the maintenance and improvement of these essential services. Another important avenue for funding is grants. These are financial aids provided by the central and state governments to urban local bodies for numerous purposes, including development programs, infrastructure projects, and urban reform initiatives. Grants are essential as they help local bodies execute projects that they otherwise might not afford. Next, we have devolution, which refers to the transfer of funds from the state government to urban local bodies. This transfer is usually based on recommendations made by the State Finance Commission, which evaluates the financial needs of these bodies to ensure they have sufficient resources to function effectively. This mechanism strengthens the financial independence of urban local bodies. Lastly, loans represent another source of revenue. Urban local bodies can borrow funds from the state government and financial institutions to support capital expenditure. However, these loans must be approved by the state government to ensure that borrowing is done responsibly and within limits. In terms of legal frameworks, these revenue sources and the functioning of urban local bodies are governed by various constitutional articles and laws. For instance, Article 243 of the Indian Constitution mandates the establishment of urban local government bodies through the 74th Amendment, emphasizing the importance of decentralization and local self-governance. Additionally, the Finance Commission's recommendations, as outlined in Article 280, play a crucial role in determining the devolution of funds to these local bodies. Understanding the sources of municipal revenue helps highlight the financial mechanisms that enable urban local bodies to function effectively. This, in turn, is vital for promoting urban development and improving the quality of life for city dwellers in India. The Central Council of Local Government is a key advisory group in India that was established in 1954. It was created under Article 263 of the Indian Constitution, which allows the President to set up such councils to promote cooperation between states and the central government on issues affecting local governance. Initially, this council was called the Central Council of Local Self-Government, highlighting a focus on self-governance, but in the 1980 as the name was changed to the Central Council of Local Government because the term self-government was deemed unnecessary. Originally, the council addressed both urban and rural local government issues. However, since 1958, its focus has shifted solely to urban local governments. This transition reflects the growing importance of urban issues as cities and towns have expanded rapidly over the years. The council is made up of important members, including the Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs from the central government and various state ministers responsible for local self-government. The Union Minister holds the position of Chairman of the Council, guiding its activities and discussions. The Central Council of Local Government has several important functions. First, it considers and makes recommendations on policy matters related to urban local governance. Second, it plays a role in drafting proposals for new laws that govern local governments. Third, the Council looks into how the central government and state governments can cooperate effectively to address local issues. Additionally, it creates a common program of action that different levels of government can follow. Another key function of the Council is to recommend financial assistance from the central government to local bodies, ensuring that urban local governments have the resources they need to function effectively. Lastly, it reviews the work carried out by local bodies that have received financial support from the central government, assessing their performance and effectiveness. This council plays a crucial role in shaping urban governance in India, as it helps bridge the connection between the central government and local institutions, thus promoting better governance at the grassroots level. The functions of the Central Council of Local Government can significantly impact how local issues are handled and how effectively urban local bodies can serve their communities.